And you have to keep believing that it's going to happen. Because when you start to doubt, or when you think, oh, well, this is what I want, but it can't really happen, then you start to break some of that magnetic power. So if you just think of this very strong magnetic power, but every time you have worry, you have doubts, you question, you don't deserve it, you start to break some of that power, and that's not strong enough to attract what you really want in your life. Maybe that's a good illustration to help you. So we have the imagination that can build this beautiful idea of what you're interested in. So that's step one. Step two is your attention to it. You have to keep focused on what it is you want, and you have to learn to say no to the things that aren't in alignment with that goal. So keep your attention on that goal, and that magnetizes that power. So we're going back to magnets. So when you focus on it, you are strengthening that magnetic power. Worry, doubt, unbelief weakens it. But when you focus, you strengthen it. And you have to be willing to go the extra mile, to do the things that other people won't do. And that's what separates highly successful people from average or below average successful people, is because they go the extra mile. They do the extra thing. And so often, and be cautious of this, especially if you're really young, be very cautious of saying, well, I'm not getting paid to do that. That may very well be true. And I know early on in my career as an educator, sometimes I would think, well, that's beyond what I really need to do. But oftentimes, I won't say every time because I don't remember, but oftentimes I would go ahead and do it anyway. And why did I do it? Well, for my own self-satisfaction, for one, but because I could see a bigger picture. And I would do things because, not that I necessarily wanted to do them, but I wanted the outcome. And that's what successful people want. It's not that they want to do that particular thing, but they want the outcome. And we always have to keep focused on, what's the outcome we want? Will we go the extra mile? Because you know what? There's magical things out there. They're watching you. Are you willing to go that extra mile? So pay attention to that. And it's not the money necessarily, but it's what we do with the money. And we have to start thinking of what things we want. So it's not good enough to say, oh, I want to make $1 million. That's very weak, really. You have to think about what it is you want to do with the money, because that's when it will strengthen that power. So our thoughts stimulate that interest and gain the attention. So we have to keep our thoughts stimulated, get the interest, and gain the attention. Third thing we have to do, so interest, attention. Third thing is expectation. I've kind of touched on this a little bit already, but as your attention intensifies, you have to be grateful for what you have and what you're about to get. And when you can be grateful for something you don't already have, that is another level of gratitude. And so we have to be able to be willing to accept and believe that's going to happen. We have to expect it to come into our life. And we get what we expect. And that's how I got the ring. I expected to get a ring. I expected to win this ring. That's how my son got a scholarship. He never thought that it wouldn't be a full scholarship. No matter how many times I said, no, wait, remember, they only said 1/3 to 1/2. He expected a full scholarship. It couldn't have been anything less. I remember one time, I think it was about his junior year in college, and got his college bill, and they were charging him a couple $100 because, tuition price went up, and they had the original one. And he goes, no, my scholarship said a full scholarship, no matter when the prices rise. And so he got out, he contacted, see, he was determined he had a full scholarship. Now, me, on the other hand, I'm like, it's just a few $100. We'll just pay it, but no, he was determined. He had earned that full scholarship. He was going to make sure he had it. Anyway, doubt, worry, fear, desire will be cut off. Okay. So we got to keep that doubt and fear and worry off. And, sometimes we fear success as much as we fear failure. And sometimes we don't want to because we fear that success, that's when we start to say, oh, well, yeah, this can't be it. And we start to doubt. So we have to be really careful about that. So when our desire becomes so strong, it becomes a burning desire, which is what Napoleon Hill would talk about in Think and Grow Rich. That desire has to become burning desire. It has to become a passion that you have to have. And you get so into it that you're willing to do the things and take the steps and the actions that you need in order to fulfill that. So your mind strengthens to the point where failure is not an option. I don't know if you remember watching Apollo 13, the movie. And of course, I lived during that time period. But in Apollo 13, when those astronauts were stranded and they were having all that engine trouble and they weren't sure at first whether they could bring them back, the person in charge said, failure's not an option. That's the way you have to be. Failure is not an option. You have to succeed. And I was just talking about this on a video I made, that when I first started my coaching business, thinking that, all I had to do was just tell people what I was doing and they would come to me. And I just expected that to happen. And nobody did. And so what I didn't realize was I had the desire, but I did not have all the tools I needed at the time. And so I had the desire, I had the image, but I wasn't doing the things I needed to do. And I wasn't doing them a certain way. And I wasn't thinking in a certain way, like Stu Wallace talks about. And I didn't believe. I did not believe. And so that non-belief started to cut me off. But the one thing I did is I had tenacity. I wasn't going to quit. And so I just kept going. So you have to develop that expectation, and you have to develop the feeling that you're not going to quit. Because if something goes wrong and you start to back away, then the universe sees that as you're not that interested. And when you get an idea, you need to move quickly on it, because the universe expects you to move very quickly on an idea. And I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. If you don't move on it, somebody else will. So you've got to